Okay, let's quickly talk about climate and this legislation that has and will pass the Senate. There's been a bit of a shift from the opposition this week, essentially admitting that before the next election, you're going to have to be a little bit more ambitious. How ambitious are you willing to be?
Well, actually, we were ambitious prior to the last election as well. While our international commitments were 26 to 28% reductions on 2005 levels, in fact, we knew that we could potentially bank around a 35% reduction in emissions because of the policies that we put in place. And those policies were put in place without legislating a target. The conversation this week hasn't been about emissions targets per se. It's not about the 43%. That's kind of done and dusted. You know, the Albanese government has committed us in international fora to a 43% reduction. The conversation this week was about whether those targets should be legislated or not. From a coalition's perspective, let's put the 43%, the reduction aside, it was whether you legislate. And because legislating comes with risks. You look at what's happened in the UK, for instance. They've legislated emissions reductions targets. It's caused massive delays in their infrastructure projects, things like the third runway at Heathrow Airport or rail tunnel projects, because you have climate activists that are now using the courts in order to delay those projects under the guise of emissions reduction. So essentially, if you legislate an emissions reduction, what you're doing is you're outsourcing the responsibility from the Parliament to the judiciary and potentially devolving it to climate activists, which is very dangerous. If businesses want certainty, which is the excuse that Labor have used to legislate an emissions target, businesses won't be certain if they feel like that they're at the whim of climate activists and a judiciary that will delay the projects that they need to put in place to make productive economic decisions.
Sure, but business disagree with you. So what do you say to business groups this morning that said this legislation gives them certainty, ability to raise capital?
That's right, except it won't necessarily give them certainty if you find that all of a sudden those big infrastructure decisions are held up by the courts in the name of emissions reduction. That in fact it's a risk, not a certainty.
Hume, before I let you go, I hear that there was a report given to MPs in the Liberal Party room this week that detailed the gender issues, if you like, at the election, particularly around women. How bad is it, do you think?
I think the report you're talking about is something that Linda Reynolds prepares, and she does at the beginning of every parliamentary term, which is a sort of a state of the gender nation in our party. It's a really important document to keep updating too, because of course it changes with each parliament. One of the reasons why we have far fewer women in this parliament than we did in the last was because we lost the election.
Well, what was her verdict? How bad was it? I mean, when you read it, how worried were you, and are you?
We know that we need to make significant changes to our gender mix in Parliament for many, many reasons. And we've had this conversation before, I know, Laura. Yeah. There is an electoral imperative to do so because there is an expectation that we will better reflect the people we wish to represent. But most importantly, when you have a diverse group of voices around a decision-making table, it makes for better decisions. It's called the wisdom of crowds. Better decisions make for better policy makes for better politics makes for better parliament and a better economy. So there is an imperative to do this, and the Liberal Party and the Coalition indeed are acutely aware of it. This was a very difficult election loss for us because we lost so many good women from our parliament, people like Katie Allen and Celia Hammond, as well as retirements for people like Nicole Flint. And we had that great new generation of female talent coming through, but we didn't win the seats that we wanted to win. In fact, we lost. Interestingly, I thought the statistic I saw was that of the 18 seats we lost 14 to women. That was a very powerful message, I think, in our party room, and something that we need to address as an organisation.
Yeah, I think so. There's some pretty scary stats. That's just one of them. We'll do more of this on Monday, and we'll speak to you about it very soon.